Okay. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Just to let everyone know, I'm recording this session because we are going to be posting this on our YouTube, on Transition Guelph's YouTube page after. So I'm just letting everyone know that it's being recorded, and you'll be able to watch it again or share it afterwards. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zero Waste Living presentation. Hopefully you're at the right session. My name is Kirsten and I'm your Zoom host from Transition Guelph. We're thrilled to have you be part of the 10th Annual Resilience Festival. It's the first time it's held virtually, so I encourage you to visit the festival website, and maybe there's some more programs or presentations you might want to be a part of. So a couple of housekeeping duties for this evening. Please stay on mute to minimize disruptions. For this session, a Q&A will follow the presentation. So if you'd like to ask questions throughout the presentation, you can add it to the chat, and then at the end, we'll go through those. As I was saying, there's going to be a recording of this session that will be posted later. And the last thing is just to be respectful and kind throughout the presentation. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Lotecki-Neely. Nancy is a local Caledon resident who strives for zero waste living by reducing her waste, minimizing her use of plastic, and living a greener lifestyle. Nancy has a master's in science and a master's in environmental health. She is the founder of Zero Waste Caledon, a local environmental initiative that aims to inspire people to live simpler and more sustainable lifestyles. She is also the owner of zerowaste-living.ca, where you can learn more about zero waste living. So, Nancy, I'll pass it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. And thank you everyone for coming to the presentation. I love talking about this stuff. So so glad you're all here. And I'm going to start the presentation off with a, little disclaimer. Just to start things off, just to clarify, I'm not an expert. I'm still learning a lot about zero waste and I'm still making mistakes. And this is definitely a no judgment zone, because I think everybody is on their own zero waste journey and everybody's at different places about how much waste they make. So definitely no judgment in this area for sure. Moving on, just quickly what we are going to talk about tonight. I want to talk a little bit about why it's important, why waste is important, and give you my top 5 ways for reducing waste. Ways you can get started, some of the benefits, and then as Kirsten mentioned, we're going to leave lots of time at the end for Q&A. So just a little bit about me and my journey. My journey started in, well, it's been going for years really, but the zero waste piece of it started around the end of 2018, and I had been wanting to do a little bit more for the environment. I was doing a lot of the stuff that, people do. I have, switched my light bulbs, and I, stopped using my dryer as much, things like that. But I was still making a lot of garbage and a lot of waste. And I had been hearing about people who had gone, zero waste, this thing that I'd been hearing about. And that these people, some of them had just made 1 jar of garbage in an entire year. And I really wanted to see if that was actually possible to do or not. So I set myself a goal of 2019 to just create 1 jar of garbage. And in addition to that, I wanted to cut down my recycling as well. So not just diverting what was going in my garbage bin to my recycling bin, but reducing everything overall. So you can see on the slide here, the jar that says 2019 was the garbage I created in 2019. And I will say that is possible. It wasn't easy. It may not be for everybody. And I certainly don't expect everybody to reduce their garbage to that extreme amount, but just to know that it is possible to do that. And then in 2020, of course, with COVID-19, my garbage output went up. So my little bits and bobs jar got bigger. We also rescued a cat halfway through the year. So now I was dealing with pet waste as well. So about 15 bags of that throughout the year. I had a couple of miscellaneous bags. So things like painter tape for when we did painting. And then also a small TerraCycle box for recycling. And if you don't know what TerraCycle is, I may, if there's time, I'll talk about that afterwards, but it is a company that will recycle your plastics for you for the pieces of plastic that your municipality can't or won't recycle. So I had a small box of that as well. Throughout the year, I wanted to kind of spread the word about what I was doing. So I started Zero Waste Caledon. I did some workshops, got on social media. And then as Kirsten mentioned, I just recently started a website. So if you visit zerowasteliving.ca, that's my website. And there's just a ton of great information in there. There's places local, more of it local to the Caledon area, but also probably good for some people in Guelph, places that will accept your reusable containers. There's resources. I have a couple recipes and a blog as well. So feel free to check that out. Okay, so just jumping right into why waste matters. This picture always um, surprises me that, really do see this in places of the world. Um, with waste, a couple of things happen. So when you throw garbage away, it doesn't obviously just go away. It's got to go somewhere. So it either ends up in the incinerator, which creates emissions. It may end up in the landfill, and that can create contamination, or worse, it ends up in our environment as litter. And you can see a lot of this plastic is disposable plastic. We live in a really fast-paced lifestyle now, and there's a lot of consumerism. We're buying a lot, and as a result, a lot is being manufactured. Those things that are being manufactured are being brought to us. So the goods movement piece is part of it, and all of these things combined create more emissions. So that's just really kind of a high level reasoning around the importance of managing waste. So before I jump into sort of my top ways to reduce waste, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on what life was like before we really had a big problem with plastic. So this was like my grandparents, my great grandparents, and even my parents, they didn't have a lot of disposable plastic. So they used cloth diapers and made their own bread, and they had milk delivered and some of those kinds of things. So I just like to reflect on that, because I think I'd like to see, and I think we are starting to move back towards some of these things again. So the pendulum is starting to swing backwards, which is really nice to see. So here are my top 5 ways to reduce waste. The first one is, and these seem like simple things. They're not. We'll unpack each one of these because there's a lot that goes into each one of these things. So consuming less obviously is the first thing that we want to do. Shopping package free, which I'll talk a little bit about that. Saying no to the disposables and then bringing your own stuff. Switching to reusable items and then making it yourself. So I'm going to go into each one of these, and we'll start with consuming less. So the first thing around consuming less is obviously it's the obvious, like buying less, owning less. But I think we have a lot of, we buy a lot of clothes, we have a lot of personal care products, we buy a lot of cleaners. I think we're often led to believe that we need, a separate cleaner for each job in the house, which isn't necessarily true. So we tend to have a lot of stuff in our homes. People tend to want to update their decor, and marketers are really good at pushing the latest trends so that people will want to upgrade, but all of those upgrades will result in waste as well. Clothing, we tend to have a lot of clothes in our closet. This picture here shows an example of what we call a capsule wardrobe. This is a little, probably, I'm not sure if I could get down to this 27 pieces for a year, but some people do. But for me, what I always think about is when I'm trying to purge my clothes, I always ask myself a certain number of questions, but I think the most important question I ask myself is, if I saw it in a store, would I buy it? And I think we tend to, because we paid money for these things, we tend to not want to give them up. But when you think about it in the reverse, in terms of whether or not you would buy it again, that might be an easier way to help you, maybe purge some of those items. Using less is another strategy. So we tend to use a lot of things like toothpaste and shampoo and laundry soap, and maybe there's opportunities for us to cut down on those things and make those things last a little bit longer. Buying high quality items is also a really good strategy. So here you can see a picture of toys from a store where things are really affordable versus a toy that's probably a bit more expensive, but is going to last a lifetime. So it's a wooden toy. And then, like, even with clothing, moving into more of our sustainable fabrics like linens and hemps and organic cottons that are going to last a really long time. They're high quality, and we're not going to be prone to get rid of them as quickly. Buying secondhand is a really great strategy as well. And I know people tend to not buy secondhand clothing just because the fit isn't right, but tailoring is also a really great solution for that. You can see in this picture here, there's really shows the advantages of having a proper tailored piece of clothing. Borrowing is another strategy. So for things that you don't think you're going to use very often, borrowing is a really great, strategy for reducing the amount of things you have in your house or the amount of waste. So there's lending libraries and there are tool libraries. This is a library of things in Toronto, which some of these things are really great to have. And then the other thing is around, maintaining and repairing our items because we live in such a fast-paced way, we tend to want to, just replace things. Whereas really what we should be focusing on is kind of maintaining them so that they're taken care of, fixing things that are broken, darning our socks, or, learning how to get stains out of our clothes as opposed to, just buying new things. And then reclaiming or repurposing or even regifting items. So this is really just around bringing new life to old items. And then food waste, which I mean, I could spend a whole hour talking about food waste, but if we buy less food, we will potentially end up wasting less food. And there's just some stats here from the Recycling Council of Ontario, but the one that really hit me was the average Canadian is almost spending, almost $2,000 a year on food that gets wasted. So something to think about. So moving on to shopping package free. This is the one that I really like. This one. It's fun. This is when, especially at the grocery store, bringing your own bags. There's a lot of plastic bags at the grocery store. I mean, we're getting better. A lot of them are offering paper now, but obviously bringing your own bags, bringing your own produce bags. Shopping package free. So my example I always use is in the grocery store, you'll see these beautiful bell peppers that are loose right beside the bell peppers that are wrapped in plastic. So an easy solution there is just to opt for the ones that don't come in packaging. And then on the right, you'll see this is a grocery shop that I did a while ago. And I had to go to a few different places to get all this, but you can see that there really isn't any plastic in this shop, except for maybe the stickers on the bananas. Shopping package free also extends to toiletries and personal care. So things like toothpaste, instead of using a tube of toothpaste, which would end up in the garbage, you can buy tabs that they look like a little pill. And when you put them in your mouth, they foam up and make toothpaste. So there's other options in things like shampoo bars. Finding the friendly stores in your neighborhood. So sometimes there are actual zero waste stores like in Toronto, but even in our local areas, there are places that will be willing to accept our containers. And we just need to kind of go out and figure out where those folks are. Shopping local is also a really great way. So a local microbrewery may let you reuse containers, or you can shop at the local farmers markets or even get a farm share with a local farmer. Shopping in bulk. This is really one of the main strategies for me is the bulk store. Now, right now with COVID, they are not accepting reusable containers, which is not ideal, but hopefully that's a temporary problem. And soon we're going to get back into getting to be able to use our reusable containers. And one of the other things I always recommend at the bulk store, they have these things called soap berries, which I don't know how many people have heard of those. If you have, maybe click the put your hand up if you can find that button. But soap berries are they're little nuts that fall off of a bush, and they can be harvested and used for as laundry detergent. You can also turn these things into hand soap and other things as well. So anyways, you may want to look into those. They're actually really amazing. Buying the right packaging. So for me, when I do have to buy plastic, I make sure it's plastic that can be recycled. So for example, this little container of yogurt in my jurisdiction cannot be recycled. The plastic container is too small. It's smaller than 3 inches, and the foil lid is not acceptable in my blue bin. So just making sure I'm buying the right packaging and opting for things like glass when I can. Buying large into cans, so that kind of ties into the packaging. If I'm going to buy something like cottage cheese, I'll buy the biggest container that I can because I know it can be recycled, and then I'll decant into smaller containers. And I even do that for other things like hand soap as well. A third area is around saying no to disposables and bringing your own. And this is really more about when you're out and about and on the go. So here you can see clearly an overflowing garbage can full of disposable cups and water bottles and plates and straws and so on. So there are a lot of great alternatives to these things. Your own water bottle, your own coffee mug. I'm really a big advocate of tap water because sometimes what we find is the bottled water is not as regulated as what you get out of your tap. So I'm just a huge advocate for tap water. And then there are always options for, like children in your family as well for reusable items. Eating in, so we have now switched more to eating in. Now that's a little bit trickier during COVID, but we try to opt to eat in where we can instead of doing takeout. We obviously are not doing that as much now. And then at the end of the meal, what I'll do is I'll bring it all home. So if there's leftover food, I'll bring that home. If there's leftover toothpicks or spears or napkins or whatever, that all comes home with me and ends up in my compost bin because I know if it goes back to the restaurant kitchen, it's just going to end up in the trash. I also have my own containers with me usually at any given time because then I can, wrap up my leftovers. I have a way to do that. I keep a beeswax wrap in my purse and a little Rubbermaid container like this in my car. And usually have either my dishes or my cutlery with me at some point. And this, just to give you an idea of this, these are the kinds of things that I usually have with me. I've talked about a few of these things already, but this is my kit. It's a picture of the things I carry with me. So this is a plastic container that I use, but I reuse that over and over again. And it's for the bulk barn because I find when I shop at the bulk barn with my glass containers, it gets heavy. So the plastic and that is the advantage of plastic. I mean, I'm not anti-plastic. I just think we need to kind of cut that down. There are other things like my bulk barn bags, my produce bags. I've got a collapsible coffee mug, my water bottle, my grocery bag, and my other things for packing food and eating. Next is switching to reusable items. And this is instead of being out on the go, this is more about switching to reusables in the home. So in the kitchen, there's a lot of really great swaps, and these are just some of them. There are a ton of really great swaps, but I've stopped using tin foil. I've now switched to parchment paper. I like to line my pans before I put something in the oven, and the tin foil really just in our jurisdiction ends up in the trash. So parchment is great because it can be composted. I've switched obviously to glass jars or containers. I use beeswax wraps instead of cling film. I use my own rags instead of paper towels. And I still do sometimes use paper towels because those can be composted. The snack bags, so you can see a picture up here in the corner of a silicone zip bag, these are great and they're really waterproof. So if you put those in like a cooler, whatever's inside will stay dry. So those are really great to have. And then things like just switching out my coffee so that I'm not using those disposable coffee pods. In other areas, so like household cleaning, I've done a lot of swaps for household cleaning. So obviously washable mops. So instead of the ones that you sort of pop into the head and then you can throw away afterwards, I have one that goes into the washing machine. I make my own disinfecting pop-up wipes. They're not really pop-up, they're just in a jar, but I make my own rags and my own cleaners and my own dryer balls instead of using dryer sheets. And I can show you some of these things at the end of the talk if you'd like to see them. For personal care, I've switched, I've gotten rid of the disposable makeup wipes, so I make my own face wipes. I've switched over to reusable menstrual products, which are really great. And if you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer. Reusable razor. Now, I don't use one that has a replaceable blade. I have one that has a replaceable head, which is not as great as the replaceable blade, but it's better than throwing the whole thing out. Even dental floss, you can buy dental floss that comes in a refillable jar, and the floss itself is compostable. And then things like diapers as well. And I'm not sure how. I know that the diapers have the technology has come a long way, so they're a lot easier to use than they used to be. So that's an option as well. And then the last thing I'll mention is around making it yourself. So specifically around, cooking from scratch. A lot of the things that I make now, I cook from scratch and it does eliminate a lot of the packaging. This cooking from scratch works really even better when what you're bringing home, the base ingredients you're bringing home, are in reusable containers, like from the bulk barn. But even if I have to bring something from the bulk barn in plastic, I know that that plastic can be recycled at least. So for this short period during COVID, I'm hoping that there's as much of an impact with the plastic from the bulk. I make a lot of my own skincare and some of my toiletries. So here's a picture of just a face scrub and a moisturizer, and my makeup wipes. And then again, like I said, a lot of my own cleaning products. So I make an all-purpose cleaner, the disinfecting wipes. I have in the past made my own dishwasher tabs, my own laundry pods. I make a soap scum remover for the shower that works fantastic, and it's all with really things that you can kind of get in bulk or from the bulk store. And then things like even for kids, you can make wipes for them, or food or toys, or even play clay, things like that for kids, to avoid some of that packaging. So I think most of us have heard of the 3 R's. This is what they call the waste hierarchy. Now there's 5 R's. So the new R's are refuse, and the newest one is rot, which is for composting. And you can see really for each of those 5 categories we've just talked about, they all fit in there somewhere. And even there's some overlap with some of those. But the idea with the waste hierarchy is to always start, your first choice should always be the top of the pyramid, and then your last choice should be at the bottom. So we always want to start by refusing or consuming less, and then working our way down to the last choice being recycling. There are other ways to reduce waste, and I don't know if we have time to go through these. Yeah, we're not doing too bad. So I can touch on some of these, and I may go through these fairly quickly. I just want to make sure we leave enough time for questions, but let's just start with compost. So composting is, to me, so for me, the big 3 ways that I reduce my waste is cutting down the garbage, cutting down my recycling, and making sure that I'm using my compost the best way that I can. So composting the right things, making sure that stickers don't end up in there, composting food waste, but not wasted food. So I'm doing my best to make sure I'm not throwing away food that was edible at one point. And then using my compost bin for non-food waste. So I realized that my floor sweepings and hair trimmings and things like that can go in the compost. That's all compostable material. The other thing I do is, because I'm a camper, I go camping in the summertime. I have these, what I call these fire bags, and I will put in items that are like untreated organic cotton material. So things like my Q-tips or trimmings from a cotton sewing project or whatever it is will go, or even toothpicks and spears from restaurants go in these bags. And then I use that for kindling when I go camping. And I just want to be clear, I'm not advocating that we burn the garbage. I don't think that's the answer, but I'm going to use kindling of some kind. So this is just a nice way for me to maybe reuse some of that stuff in a new way. And then compostable takeout packaging. So for those of us who still do takeout every now and then, there are places, there is one place I know for sure, that all of their packaging, aside from their cups, drinking cups, all of the other packaging is all compostable. So occasionally when we do go for takeout, for fast food, we'll go to the place we always go to, and at the end of the meal, there's literally nothing left. It's all either we've eaten it or it ends up in the compost bin. So there are ways to do that as well. In terms of recycling, so TerraCycle, again, I can answer questions about this afterwards, but they're a company that will recycle plastic that or even other goods that your municipality can't. Sometimes it's free and sometimes it's not. So I bought a small TerraCycle box for just general plastics, and I've had it for I think 2 years of plastic, and it's not full yet. So, but you really have to know what can be recycled. So you make sure you know what can and can't be recycled, what can go in the blue bin and what can't. The other thing is there's a term called downcycling. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but when glass and metal go into the recycling system, they come out the same. They come out as glass and metal. But when plastic goes through the recycling system, it comes out the other end as an inferior plastic product. and eventually it just can't be recycled anymore. So it ends up as garbage. So again, trying to minimize the use of plastics, making sure we clean it. When I talked to the recycling people, when I was doing all my research, that was one of the main things that they wanted me to get a message across. So just making sure that we really clean it first. And there's different levels of clean. Some people just rinse, some people actually do a thorough clean. My recycling is usually generally clean enough that I could leave it out at the curb with the lid open and it wouldn't attract any animals at all because it's that clean. That's a bit extreme. Maybe not everybody's going to do that, but cleaning is a really important part of it. And in our area, the bagged, so the really thin plastics, the things that the bulk barn stuff comes in, and the plastic that your toilet paper is wrapped in, like the big packages of toilet paper, those should be packaged, and check with your local public works department. But here where we are, it gets packaged in a plastic, like a plastic shopping bag, and tied off so that it doesn't end up kind of floating around the recycling center. And then it does actually get recycled. The other thing is to think about hazardous waste. So things that, and I had no idea until I started doing this research, but things like vitamins, nail polish, those are things that should go to the hazardous waste depot for your recycling center, not in the garbage. So there are some other ways to get rid of these things. And then again, like I said, thinking out of the outside of the blue box with things like TerraCycle. Shipping. So again, these are some of the less frequent kind of things, but with shipping, there's always waste related to shipping. There's the packaging. You can ask for low packaging or no packaging. There are places like Etsy that will do that. And then just keeping in mind about your carbon footprint. So there are opportunities like Etsy and other places will, I think well.ca in Guelph actually will offset their deliveries with investment in carbon capturing type technologies, or other environmental technologies that will reduce carbon. So just need to do a little bit of homework on those things, but there are opportunities there as well. And then purging, obviously, when we purge, which I have been doing during COVID, taking the opportunity to get rid of things, it makes waste. So what we try to do, or what I try to do, is donate as much as I can, and really only donating the good quality stuff, making sure that things get fixed before I put them in the donation bin. And then ultimately some things do end up in the garbage. But then I don't replace them. I don't buy them again, and I don't replace them. COVID waste. This is something that's new that we're all trying to get our heads around now. Reusable masks, wonderful. Disposable masks, we're really starting to see a lot of them in the environment as litter. Um, I would encourage everyone to use reusable masks and not the disposable ones. If you are using the disposable ones, just please make sure you cut the ear loops, because what we're finding now is because they're in the environment as litter, this is the same issue with the straws and the other pieces of plastic that are out there. Animals are getting affected by these things. And so I know we're kind of all in the habit of cutting the rings from the 6-pack of pop. We need to start thinking about it the same way for the masks as well. And then the other thing with COVID related waste, I think, is we're starting to see way more plastic use, single use plastics, because people want to be protected, which fair enough. And more plastic for bulk shopping, and more plastic for things like takeout. Hopefully we will see a change in this year with all of that. Traveling, I won't go through all of this, but airplane waste, that's a big thing. You can see right here in the corner, like literally everything on this tray is plastic. When I fly, I refuse the meal. I just don't get it. I make sure I bring my own food, and I bring my own containers, and try to plan ahead when I'm in another country, which again, with COVID, not so much an issue. Moving on to, so carbon offsets. I know I mentioned this already, but just a word on carbon offset. If people have questions about carbon offsets, I'm happy to answer them. But when 2-3 years ago, when I was flying, I had flown to the UK. bought carbon offsets for that. And even when I fly up north to see family, I buy carbon offsets for that as well. And people want to know about that, I can explain how that works. Special occasions, this is another opportunity to really cut down. There's a lot of plastic waste when it comes to parties, especially with kids' parties, plastic decor. Just switching over to reusable decor or more natural-based decor, or even paper type decor, and then just letting your guests know what you prefer in terms of gifts, or if they're planning to bring anything to the party. And then there are a number of other areas. Again, I won't go through all of this, but opportunities to office, really cutting down a lot of the paper that we get at home. We've got a lot of flyers, and at the office, we do a lot of printing. So opportunities there. The basement, the garage, and the garden, to me, kind of all fall into the same bucket. This is usually where we find a lot of things that are stored items, things that are broken, that we have been meaning to fix. So let's just get those things repaired, or get them moved out, or given to someone who can actually use them. With garden, I think there are now places that you can get garden supplies like soil and mulch and that delivered. I don't think they may come in a larger plastic package, but I know that those bags do create a lot of, the larger bags for mulch, they can create quite a lot of plastic. And then pet waste. Right now, I don't know about in Guelph, but in the region of Peel, we do not have a way to manage pet waste, especially for cats, because there's an issue with toxoplasmosis. So that is literally all has to just go to the landfill. We're hoping to see in the next few years that they actually get the proper facility to be able to process all that. So getting started, there's a couple things you can do. There's people often recommend waste audits, and there's all kinds of things online where you can do these really complicated waste audits, and you can like categorize and weigh and all that. What I always say is just pay attention to what you're throwing out for the next few weeks, and start to think a little bit about ways to maybe make some swaps, starting with the easy stuff. So the next time you go grocery shopping, just buy the vegetables that don't come in plastic. There's always something to choose from in most stores anyways. If you haven't been to the bulk store, go check it out. Maybe you want to learn a new recipe. One of the things I always try now is I try to find recipes that don't call for ingredients that I won't use very often. Because you usually buy one ingredient and then it sits in your cupboard forever, and you never really use it. So I try to really simplify my recipes, and again, eating more simply, and then reducing gradually. This isn't going to happen overnight. You're going to have to make some habits. You're going to have to remember when you go out to remember to bring your coffee mug or your grocery bags or your produce bags or whatever it is, and just taking more of a slower approach to life and planning ahead is the way to win at this game. So the benefits, there are lots of benefits of zero waste. There's going to be, you're going to be a bit healthier. You're going to have fewer trips to the curb. You're not going to maybe shop as much. You're going to save some time, some money. Maybe you learn how to make bread or something new. It's less stressful. There's going to be less impact on the environment. But one of the things that I always tell people that really surprised me about really cutting down my waste was how much freedom I felt afterwards. So less clutter in the house, because now I'm not filling my house up with low quality items that break quickly, and then or they don't work properly, and then you have to replace them. So there's freedom from that. Freedom from complication. I'm not looking for those complicated recipes anymore. I'm not trying to, I'm not rushing through life. I'm kind of slowing down to be a bit more intentional. And then freedom from influence. Like, I really do not feel influenced by marketing or by what my neighbors have, or feeling like I have to keep up with other people. I'm just staying in my own lane, because I know that what I'm doing is good for me and for my family and for the environment. So it's really empowering. The last thing I'll just mention is that there's I don't know if you've heard of Zen Habits. It's a blog. It's fantastic. They have all kinds of great stuff there. But the owner of the blog, his quote is that simplicity boils down to two steps. One is identifying the essentials, and then eliminating the rest, which I think is really kind of the essence of it. And that's it. So if you ever want to reach me, you can reach me at zerowaste.living.ca/contact, and I have an online form there, and you can always get me there. So thank you so much, and we can do questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. That was a wonderful presentation and really informative. Lots lots of new stuff. Even when we think we are reducing our waste, there's so many more things we can do. So thanks for challenging us and helping us think outside of the box. I'll first read a couple of like comments that were posted throughout your presentation, because Betty let us know that you can bring expired medication to the pharmacy. So that's a great tip.
Yes.
And she was saying TerraCycle will take masks. So there's a cost, which is why I think companies that insist that their employees wear disposable masks should pay for these zero waste boxes.
Great point.
Steve was noting about reusable like takeout containers, I think. There's a company in Guelph called the Friendlier Company, and they're starting to share these reusable takeout containers with different restaurants. So that's a great option, and hopefully that kind of,
What was the name of the company?
They're called a Friendlier Company.
Ah, okay. I think I've heard of them. That's great.
Yeah, I think they're reaching London right now. So
oh, good.
Let's see. So Lindsay has a question. Lindsay, do you want to be unmuted and then ask it yourself? Let's see. I'll ask you. Let's see if this will work. If not, I will ask.
Hi, sorry. I just sort of like, as I went through the presentation, had questions. So sorry, there's a couple. First, I was just wondering, have you found that the butcher counter allows you to bring your own container to put the meat into? Like, yeah?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
great.
now not all of them will, but the butcher in Orangeville does, which I think is absolutely amazing. And she said that so I'll bring in a glass container, because with meat, you don't want to use plastic. So I'll bring a glass container, and she puts it right on the scale and zeroes it out and then fills it up with,
Oh,
I'm
nice.
not eating as much meat as I used to. But she said people will come in with a crock pot, and she'll put the crock pot on the thing and zero it out and put a whole chicken in there. So they do it. In some cases, you just have to ask around.
Okay. My second question was about donating items. I was wondering if you had like an organization you would recommend, because I've heard that some are better at diverting from landfills than others.
That's a good question, and I don't have one I would recommend, but you know what? I probably should look into that. I generally donate to the Salvation Army. I don't know how good they are. I know that in the past I've donated to Value Village, and a couple of things. One, I heard that they're not really great with, it's a for-profit from what I understand. And also they don't ever really seem very, I hate to say it, but appreciative of the donations, whereas Salvation Army is always so appreciative. And I think that they do a better job of serving the marginalized populations.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Great. My next was just if you could share your soap scum remover recipe, because that's a...
Oh, sure. Yeah. Is there a way, Kirsten, is there a way to email everybody afterwards?
I'm not totally sure, but if you send an email to if we email back and forth and you send me the recipe, I can post it on our Instagram page or something like that if you're comfortable with sharing it broadly.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see if I can, we'll keep talking, but in the meantime, I'll see if I can find the actual recipe. And I don't know if I could probably post it right in the chat, couldn't I?
Yeah. Yeah. And then people can copy and paste it onto like a Word doc or write it down or something like that.
Great. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. Lindsay, did you have any other questions?
I was wondering, how do you buy milk? Zero waste.
That's a good question. I don't actually drink milk, but there are, you can buy milk in glass containers from what I understand.
Okay.
So it's a bit more expensive. And I think it's still really resource intensive, like people buy a lot of milk, right? Like if you've got a big family, you're buying a gallon or whatever container a day. Glass jars that, expensive, and I don't know how sustainable or good for the environment it is, but the other thing is, and I know this is probably not very appealing to people, but it was what I was raised on, is powdered milk, which you can get at the bulk barn.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question was just if you had noticed that it costs particularly more, like moving to your zero waste lifestyle, like I'm thinking farmer's market versus like no frills kind of thing.
No, I don't. I think it balances out. Some things are more expensive.
Mhm.
I don't eat as much meat as I used to, and meat can be expensive, especially if you're buying it at some butchers can be more expensive than regular stores.
Mhm.
Um, Especially there's a place here in Caledon that's like really high end local beef. Yeah, it can be expensive.
Mhm.
But the vegetables I think are kind of on par with farm, especially if you get a farm share that's a lot cheaper. But I don't think it's that much more expensive. And then there are things that I'm just not buying anymore, right? Like I'm not buying chips and I'm not buying cookies or whatever, like because and those things are the things that are expensive. Bread, I mean, bread is kind of expensive. Cereal is, I guess, expensive, but things, a lot of those things you can get at the bulk barn. So I think in the end, it kind of all ends up being kind of on par.
That's awesome. Thank you for answering my million questions. That was great.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. I'll ask Christina's question for her. She said, how do you dispose of razor heads?
Oh,
Yeah, actually, I mean the blade. Sorry.
Oh, there she is.
the blade.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I don't know if I can. So I've been collecting them ever since I came to Canada because I don't know how to dispose of them here because they are pretty sharp, right? And I'm not sure if they can go into recycling.
My guess would be that they're considered hazardous waste.
Mm-hmm.
They want to contact your local public works department to find out if you can put it in hazardous waste. You may have to go to the recycling center to drop them off, but the recycling center or the public works department should be able to tell you what to do with those. But that's a good question. I actually haven't ever been asked that before, so I'm guessing. But I would start with them. That might be your best bet.
So sorry, maybe I got the part about razors wrong, but didn't you say you use the razor where you exchange the blade?
No, I use the razor. No, I use the razor where you exchange the head. So the part with the blade, the head and the blades, it goes into garbage for me. I put it in it goes in my jar. Yeah.
Okay, that's part of the jar then. Okay, good, great. Thank you. Then I will do my own little investigation there and find out what's going on with the blade. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Christina. Steve, you have your hand up? Let's see.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I was typing a chat. It always happens, right? So Nancy, really interested in the TerraCycle. A few years ago, Transition Guelph was trying to, sorry, I'll put my video on as well. Trying to find a way to get plastic bags, grocery bags and other bags recycled in Guelph. And what we got back was they were looking into it, and then finally they said they couldn't find a company that would accept plastic for recycling. So I'm wondering if this TerraCycle is an alternative and if it's available in Guelph or not.
It is. So TerraCycle is available everywhere. It's a Canadian company. It's a real up and comer. Like, I think to be honest, if you're looking for an investment opportunity, these guys are going to be huge. They're huge now, even in the last couple of years. But they do. So I know and I know this only through my day job, there are companies in Mississauga that we collaborate with through my day job that use TerraCycle for their staff. So things like people who are using masks and gloves, like not COVID related, but just in their regular jobs. These companies have hired TerraCycle to manage all that. Now it's at a cost, but they definitely would do it. And you can order online. So for the items for which the companies have already contracted with TerraCycle to process their waste, the boxes are free. So things like Brita, Nespresso pods, those kinds of things, they've already paid TerraCycle to give boxes to people to put their recycling in. Other things aren't free. So things like medical waste, that kind of stuff, you have to buy the box. And in fact, if you give me 1 second, I'll show you. So this this is my box for my house. And you can see like, this is like going to be a year or more worth of my plastic, right? And most of it is like hard plastic or zippers, that kind of stuff that can't go in our recycling bin. But they come in gigantic size boxes as well. So that absolutely is a solution for that. But
I'm
it comes
wondering
in
if we,
box.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm wondering if we, as a nonprofit, could put a bunch of these things around the city and have people drop them in, and we maybe pay for it. But that's awesome. Thanks for the tip. We're going to pursue that.
Yeah, this is definitely the company I would recommend. I don't think there are many other companies doing it. And if you go to their website, they actually have videos of the technology that they use to recycle the plastic that comes into them and what they do with it. So it's really great. Good company.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, I'm going to go through the chat because we've got a couple of great suggestions. So I'll read those out. So Betty said, my butcher will wrap slices of, I guess, meat in parchment paper. Susan said, I encourage people to check with their local thrift store because some of them do accept unwearable clothing and textiles to sell to industries for rags instead of sending them to the landfill.
Good idea.
Diana said, factory farming produces a lot of waste, so it's best to go meat-free.
Yes.
Susanna said, we have a free cycle in my city, and that's Markham. So free cycle, I guess that's something for everyone to look into.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Ebby Manor is a local milk supplier that uses glass jars. So maybe look into Ebby Manor. I don't know where that is. Susan, let us know about that. And then Caledon has a free cycle group too. And there are local dairy farms. Some are even grass fed that sell milk in returnable glass bottles. Lots of great tips here in the chat room. So I don't know if I should read them all or not. I don't want to, we have about 14 minutes left. But let's get to Betty's question. Betty, I will unmute you because I think you have a question for Nancy.
Is this the one about what is a free cycle group?
Yes.
The bottom? Yeah, what is that?
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Nancy, how are you?
How are you?
I'm great, Nice to see you here.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. So as far as I know, I've never used one, but I believe a free cycle organization is a web-based, it's almost like Kijiji, but for free stuff.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you can go on free cycle and you can post on there for things that you want to get rid of, or you can go on there when you're looking for something. And often what they will do is, I know in my neighborhood, we have, we don't anymore, unfortunately, but we would have what we call like a free cycle Saturday. And people would put all of the things they don't want anymore at the end of their driveway, and then people could just come and take it, right? So it would be like you just take a big drive through the neighborhood and just collect all the cool stuff that you want, and get rid of stuff that you don't. And we used to, oh gosh, we got rid of barbecues and all kinds of great stuff at the end of the driveway. But
a garage sale without money.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And that, I think the idea of free cycle is just that giving and taking for free, recycling for free, which
Okay. If you hear about an event, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Betty. Steve, it looks like your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
I do. I took it down for 2 seconds and I put it back up. So Nancy, I just want to tag along on the food question that you were answering, and local, especially organically grown or ecologically grown food, much higher density nutrients in it, and they tend to last way longer than the stuff that you buy in the store. Even organics, things that come from distances just don't last in your fridge. And then you can even take it a step further. We have a cold room, a root cellar in our house, and we harvest a lot of things from our garden and put it in there, and it lasts for months in the right conditions. So it's kind of along the same lines of what you were saying is for other non-food items. If you buy quality, you might pay a little bit more, but you're getting huge value for that extra dollars that you're paying.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm not a gardener. I would love to be a gardener, but I remember hearing about, my great grandparents, they had a root cellar and they had stuff down there. And I always wondered, like, how does that stuff last so long? Like, but clearly what you're saying is that it's a totally different vegetable altogether, right? Compared
It
to what you're
is.
getting now in the stores.
Yeah. Well, as an example, we're market gardeners and we sell loose leaf lettuce. We don't wash it when we sell it at the market. And if you put it in the fridge, in the crisper, it'll last for 1 to 2 weeks. Whereas, you buy a package of lettuce in the store and you're lucky if it isn't a limp mess after a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are ways to store, like even the stuff that you get from the grocery store that maybe isn't going to last as long. There are ways to store that. Like when I buy anything that's wiltable, um, I will wrap it in. I find what works the best is you wrap it in cloth. So I have, do I have it with me? So I have these are my paper towels. It's just like a little white rag. But I keep a basket of them on my counter. And then what I do is I'll just like wrap the lettuce in this, and then I will wrap it in a bag. Like if I have a plastic bag or a Ziploc bag that I'll reuse, and it lasts a lot longer that way. But again, doesn't last forever, right? But there are definitely ways to to extend the shelf life of your food in the refrigerator. You just have to store it properly.
Nancy, I know you had a couple of the tools that you use on a day-to-day. Did you want to share those with us?
You mean the
props or whatever
props I have here?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously like my coffee mug, which is great because it just pops open, and then I can see if I can get it to go all the way. But like this it's silicone, right? So it just stays in the car. I've got this is the one that you saw already on the presentation, but it's the one I keep this in the car as well, so that when I am out at a restaurant, if I need to do any kind of leftovers, I've got a place for that. And then things like this. So I love this. This is my bamboo cutlery set, and it's in a little linen pouch, which is beautiful and wasn't cheap. So what I'm saying is if you want to be able to carry, it doesn't have to be expensive. You can take cutlery out of your drawer in your kitchen and you can wrap it in a cloth with an elastic band, and it does exactly the same thing, right? So again, I always try to really emphasize that zero waste can be expensive. Like I've seen some things, like actually today I was online looking at a shop in Toronto, and they have a starter kit for $100, right? So, and that's just a few things for the grocery store. So it can be very expensive, but there are many ways around these things. Like the Beeswax Wraps, I always keep one of these in my purse so that if I'm at a whatever restaurant and I can't finish my sandwich, it goes in there. There's some other, like my little beaver bag. This is my little snack bag, right? It's you can get these at the Bulk Barn and other places, but it's kind of lined with like a food safe plastic, or I don't know if it almost feels like a vinyl, but anyways, it doesn't drip, right? It's waterproof. And then, I've got my other things in here that I don't use as often, but I've got, here, my shampoo, right? This is my shampoo and it smells lovely, but this is just half of it. But this you just kind of wipe on your hair and it makes a lather. So it's great because then you can use a container afterwards and there's no plastic bottle to deal with at the end, right? Yeah, things like gifts. I'll wrap this is a book I've wrapped using a technique called furoshiki. And it's just a really beautiful way to wrap a gift, and there's no tape, no paper, nothing. And then what else have I got in here? I've got my dryer balls that I made from scratch, which was a super fun project. There's a wool farmer in Orangeville, and he sells wool roving, which is the raw form of it. And I use that to make my own dryer balls. You can use tennis balls. There's so many different ways to do it, but yeah, so there we go. Those are kind of like the fun things I usually have at hand.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing this with us.
Yeah.
Susanna let us know that she used a leg from her child's pants to make a cutlery pouch. So that's a pretty good upcycling method.
That's awesome. I like that.
So I think we went through all the questions and all the comments. Nancy, would you like to, leave the group with anything else?
No, just thank you for having me. I really love talking about this stuff, and give me an opportunity to talk about this for an hour and I'll jump at it. So it's great to see that people are interested. It's great to see that people have really good ideas as well, and lots of opportunity to share information. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Nancy. It was a great session and you shared a lot of good tips and knowledge with us. So we really appreciate it. As I told the group, for some people that logged on, partway through, we are recording this session and it will be posted on Transition Guelph's YouTube, sometime soon. So just make sure you check in with our website or through our Instagram page or Facebook page, and you'll be able to see all of these great tips from Nancy and refer back to them. So I think that's it. And
one thing before
Yeah.
I forget, the soap scum recipe, if for some reason you miss it or you don't see it on Instagram or whatever, if you Google like DIY soap scum, it's the one that has Dawn, which is the blue dish liquid, and vinegar, and I think maybe some water. I don't know if there's something else in there or not. But the idea is that you spray it on the shower and you just leave it for 30 minutes. And when you come back, all you have to do is rinse it, and it's clean, like as clean as a whistle. So if for some reason you miss it in what we send out, then you should be able to find it. Hopefully that'll get to a recipe with that information.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to make that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Just open a window though. The vinegar can be a bit strong.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, thanks very much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening and a great spring.
You too. Thanks for coming, everyone. It was nice to see you all.